like that sculpture you got over there.
Yeah, I know. I don't know what it means, but it's cool.
Is it like a kind of like a totem pole almost, like a
Yeah,
mask?
it's a totem. I think it's something maybe related to Hawaiian culture, since we are in Hawaii.
Mhm.
I think so. I'm not sure though. Gotta
How
ask
are
the
you?
owner.
How's your or what are you doing? Airbnbs or
How is what? Sorry.
are you doing like Airbnbs for your stay or are you?
Yeah, we found a place at our friend's apartment. She's renting out her room, so we rented it for a month. Um,
Right on.
yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
pretty good. Works out okay. We're leaving already this Friday to go to Kauai Island, and then from Kauai we'll return back to here to Oahu, and then we are flying out on Monday to Denver, and then from Denver we're staying there for a couple of weeks, and from there we're going to San Francisco, and in San Francisco we're gonna be for a couple of months, and then I don't know what will happen next.
Whatever happens, happens.
Whatever happens, happens. Yeah. Let me grab my tea.
Yeah, actually, after our last talk, I had a lot of dreams
Really?
the night after.
Just well, that's awesome. What did you
Yeah, they
see?
were more vivid. I can't remember them too much.
It's
Unless I
okay.
think about it. But yeah, they were
Yeah,
more
that's
vivid.
how it works. You start thinking about it, it happens. That's nice. How did your you said your cousin or your nephew will be working on the
Oh,
video
my brother.
editing?
Yeah. Yes, we're actually getting that process together. Him and I met today. So, as part of all that, we're just really thinking about the feel, how we want people to experience the whole thing.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
yeah, this sort of content's becoming the cornerstone of our whole process and model. But yeah, we're getting a lot of interest, like tons and tons of people, like probably 7+ a day that
Where?
want to be interviewed.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's cool.
yeah, it's a lot.
Interviewed for what?
So in that context, it's going to be for Titans of Today, is what we're calling it. It's just all about executives, entrepreneurs, leaders, their thinking processes, their decision-making processes, and helping people understand how they could use those things in their lives. So
Oh,
that's a Manuka thing, but it's kind of taken on a life of its own. The Titans of Today show or podcast, whatever we want to call it.
okay.
So yeah, a lot of people are interested in that. I'm really excited for that in particular because I think the more we can improve people's thinking, the better.
For
Even if it's just
sure, yeah.
bits
It's
of
important.
content.
That's cool.
So so we're getting that process ironed out, and it's nice to put the purpose of something first.
Hmm.
Why you're doing something, and that being the engine for growth rather than the engine for growth. Fueling what you want to do for your purpose.
Yeah, like growth for growth. For the growth, for the purpose of growth.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So what's new in your business life?
Um, I'm going to be entrepreneur in residence at 500 startups in San
Okay.
Francisco for a couple of months, mentoring a batch of startups from Singapore.
Cool.
They're expanding to the US market, and they're looking for, I don't know, they're going through this accelerator, and then I'll be just helping them with their questions, wherever they are. And so I'm considering I'll probably reach out to you if any of them will be looking into um, LinkedIn automation tools or like messaging automation tools.
Yeah, that and the
Sounds like
distribution network focus is big as well. I want to get into a tech, the market here in the US. We have
hmm
those distribution networks that are all CXOs. So if they're B2B in any fashion, because we can utilize those things. And we're actually what I'm gonna do now is really offer two models, because we already talked about the percent of revenues. But now I'm thinking about just doing it on a subscription based, like super cheap, where a brand like that, they would do basically a couple hundred up front, actually just to learn how to create and structure the content. And then like $97 a month to say, post as many articles as you want to the distribution network. Because to the distribution network, again, it's free content. To the business, that's like, man, if you can just have, you could reach 100,000 execs over and over and over again for like a crazy cheap price. It's a no-brainer. So that's actually how I want to open that whole model up. I was just thinking about that today. I got a new book. It's called Productize. It's funny. I don't know if this helped. I opened it up and read 2 pages, and then I had this idea, and it wasn't even. I was actually reading like the praise for the book. So I think it just puts your mind in that direction. You know what I mean?
Cool.
It gets the thought going. So
that's nice. Yeah, I think if you, well, I mean, I'm just afraid everything is just getting so spammy nowadays in LinkedIn. I don't even open it any longer.
No, and that's literally like, yeah, I completely agree. I had a very long conversation about this with one of my clients, and that's why we're moving away from it for the most part. Obviously, it's still there, because the way I look at it, you can't like, and we talked about this a little bit, but there still has to be. There's 2 forms, right? There's outbound and there's inbound. It's not like you completely stop outbound, but the goal is to improve the quality of that as much as possible. How do you take whatever you're offering, flip it around so that you're creating value first?
Okay.
And I feel that any and every product could be engineered to have that solution. Is it a trial? Like, what is it, if anything? Are the resources of that business that can, or the connections or whatever, that can be leveraged so that value comes first? Those are the strategies I believe in.
Okay, so you're trying to move on to value first.
Absolutely. And
tell me more about this distribution network. I think if you explained it to me, I kind of missed the idea, or I forgot about it. Can you tell me more about it?
So it actually comes from Jay Abraham. This is how Jay Abraham has made the majority of his money. Obviously, he's a genius. He's known as the #1 living marketer today. Has made, I think, to date, this was as of like 6 months ago, 21 billion in profits for the companies he's worked with, and he's worked over thousands of industries. But one of his core concepts is, and actually there's two concepts in particular, but I'll start with the first one. The core concept here is, rather than, if you're a startup or a business that's just starting out or looking to grow or wherever you are, rather than saying, like, okay, what do we have? Like, who do we know? The real thing is to look at, okay, who are we going for? And who already has that audience? So if someone, like, for example, one of my clients actually, I grew up, she basically raised me in some senses. It was one of my childhood friend's mom. She owns a sports league, and she has about 30 to 40,000 parents across the Midwest area that all their kids play basketball. And so let's say if there was, and this is just a random example, let's say there was a startup that was making a product for basketball players, or for children basketball players, or shoes, or something like that.
Right.
Rather than being like, okay, I need to go, do Facebook ads to those parents, whatever. Go sign a partnership with the league owner in this case, and promote that and get a deal. Obviously, it's a win-win. Maybe you give her 1% of revenues or something like that. And then she'll go blast that out to her already subscribed in email list, who already receives content all the time.
Yes.
With, hey, maybe you make a story out of it as well. Like, hey, I worked with this person who has this really great shoes, whatever. And then that goes out to 30,000 people, and all of a sudden they're getting 300 orders in a matter of, a short period of time.
So how you want to productize it? How does your network and what you said, this content part works here in this case, like the $69 whatever?
Exactly. So imagine, like, the core thought is, well, what we're doing now is we have this large network, and my goal now that I realize this is, well, let's get more networks. But we have a great partnership with a network that has over 100,000 CXOs, all in tech. And I'm talking real Silicon Valley tech leaders, not just, any run-of-the-mill person. So obviously the big thought is, okay, B2B products or maybe executive, things like that. But let's just say B2B software products. What our present process is, okay, so we have a guideline of how the story should look, because the goal is, well, you want to create value first. So rather than just saying, hey, come and buy our product, here's my link, that post wouldn't fly for anybody. The real goal is to say, okay, how do we take our product, our business, our technology, maybe there's something unique about the way our business, our tech works, and start to build a story around that. And then as you're going through it, say, hey, yeah, and the best case is, well, here's a particular customer problem that our tech solves, and you contextualize that within the article, so that person go, oh yeah, I have that, I need that fixed, or maybe one of my companies I consult for or I advise for has that problem. Then you go ahead and they click through, and there's your conversion. But now to zoom back out, so that's the kind of content we want to create right now. If you look at it, we are saying we're connecting with this business, right? Let's say it's one of your startups you bring. Right now, this is the present process. I'd go connect with them. I'd explain this. We'd have a call about this. Then they would go try to create this content and figure it out. They would send it back to me or a member of my team, who would then go send it to the distribution network and what have you. Well, rather than having to go through that whole, 5 calls or whatever, just make a single, here's a $297 course of exactly how to do it, what we need, and then pay us $97 a month, and we'll let your articles go right through to the network, as long as, of course, they meet those within that.
And how does this network operate? Is it just email based? Are you sending out emails, or is it like medium.com, or it's manuka.ai/blog?
So these would be actual digital publications that have a website with a readership, and then they go ahead and promote that article to social media as well.
So first they write it somewhere on a third party,
and then
like medium.com or LinkedIn blog or whatever it is, and then through your network, you email it as you email it to others as just an email, like, hey, have you ever wondered how to fix your conversion rate? Here's an article written by this guy, and then they read it, and then if at the end there is like a link that says, if you actually want some support to help get it done, please click this link. We get you connected to the person who wrote this article.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, in this regards, I will want to advertise outsourcing through your platform. This makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because on LinkedIn, it really is just overwhelming how many people are advertising outsourcing at this point.
Yeah,
everyone is just spamming with like, hey, hire our web development studio and whatnot.
Exactly. And that's where, man, I'm telling you, the world is really ripe for a change in that regard, because you're so right. Everyone, these automation tools came out and everyone's like, yes, send all the messages possible. Yeah. And then everybody starts doing it, and then people get numb to it. And so I had the conversation I had with one of my clients was, he's like, well, what you need to do is this. Okay. So he said, what you need to do is you need to actually personalize these as much as possible. But my thought is, okay, so imagine this. Let's say Alexei, I go to your profile and I figure out, and I do the most well-meaning, well-written, elaborate, handwritten message on LinkedIn. I talk about that maybe we went to the same college and da-da-da-da. Like, you're probably still going to see it in general, just because that's the way your mind's set up right now as, oh, this is just another automated message.
Exactly. Well, not even automated. It's just someone trying to sell me some stuff.
Exactly. So it comes down to, how do we get a pattern break in that? If we're still going to use that, how are we going to get a pattern break and put value first?
Okay.
Which I've found, just keep it as simple as possible. Have a direct offer/ask that is, again, as simple as can be, but it's exciting. It has to be something unique, which is where we found is interview. Literally just asking people to interview and again, not having any expectation. focusing actually on, hey, I want to create something cool with you.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything else comes out of that, then that's totally fine.
So you'll be interviewing CXOs from tech field for like a podcast or something, which is like one of 100 podcasts maybe with
Right.
CXOs.
You're
from
absolutely
Silicon
right. But
Valley.
here's the thing is, we have to move in the right direction. And that, I mean, and any progress in the right direction is absolutely 100% well worth it. And of course, you differentiate, you have different things, but we already talked about this a little bit, but my grander vision is actually to formalize and structuralize this in some sort of new technology that we can bring to market where people could start to take advantage of this. And I really believe that even something as simple as this could be years ahead of its time, because I've had numerous conversations, believe me, you get it right now. You're like, okay, I see where the value is. I've had numerous conversations with people that are highly respected and other things that are like, I don't know, man. I mean, they're like this whole, outbound works. Like we just need to do more outbound.
more emails.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, we just need to do more of the simple stuff that, and I'm a big fan of master the basics, but we have to do things that are different and say, now how do we improve the experience of as many people as possible while getting what we want? And I think it's literally just the paradigm or the thought that you can give others what they want and you will get what you want, rather than like, I need to get what I want. And then maybe that's the mindset I feel in the market right now. It's like, I need to get what I want here, like
first.
Even if 0.4% of people respond to me, like, then that, like, that's the mindset I feel. Like, it's not very exciting to me. And I want to flip that whole experience for people.
So. Tell me more about your business. I think I saw a few LinkedIn messages like that, where they would try to give value first. Also, it's not a new concept for like trying to give value first.
Right.
I think there was, I don't remember who said that, Gary Vaynerchuk or someone else, but there was something like jab, hook.
Yeah. No, exactly. You're absolutely right. And yeah, I mean, because if you want to grow something and scale something, I think technologies become new, right? But technologies even at that are, you're taking something that is old and making it new, making it easier, faster, quicker, better.
We call it, I got inspired.
Yeah, exactly. So I think one of the key things for anybody watching this that I learned is when I actually started to say, I don't need to do everything new. Is when, and I was like, when I realized that there are people who have gone through hell and processes and like everything to become successful. When I just started to say, okay, all right, I'll throw out my ideas to focus on the core fundamentals until you can grow and scale those core fundamentals. Now, once you have those core fundamentals growing and scaling, you're growing your revenues, you're serving more people, you're doing the right things in the market. Then you can really start to look at, okay, so now where do I make this unique? Where do I make this better? How do I improve the experience? Okay. So that comes back around to the second topic, which is the concept of preeminence, which is also a Jay Abraham topic. I mentioned that. It's about putting yourself out there in the market as the number one choice. If you're doing a business, you need to position yourself in the market. Alexi, right? People who are going to go work with Build a Team need to know that they're working with Alexi from Build a Team, even if they're working with your developers. You need to build that presence in the market that says, we are such a high cut above that there's no other choice you don't work with.
Interesting. Number one. Okay. Yeah. I feel like a lot of companies nowadays say, oh, we are number one. You
can everybody can be the world's best at something.
Best, yeah.
Or the world's first.
Okay. Number one. Interesting. Well, good luck. Send me a link.
Right.
To the podcast.
That part's more of a joke, but it is true. I mean, and it was more to a point of what you were saying. You do see it in the market. People are like, we're the world's best this, and it's just this totally unique thing. But it's like, yes, you are.
Buy our NFT. Yeah.
Right.
I've been
Well, the
watching an
goal is.
interesting video
Go ahead.
on NFT. Just I'll send you a link. Interesting video on NFTs.
Sweet.
All right. You were saying?
Yeah. I mean, the goal is that you really do. Again, you differentiate by mastering your market, learning the things that matter to your market, and doing things that make a difference. I think those are
the core values, the core things. Sounds about right. Well, I hope it works out as becomes as scalable as you hope it would. Yeah. Technology. It's very, very important. I think it's what we discussed, that the tech that is being built nowadays is like oriented towards humanism and what's it called? Sustainability and other buzz terms, and not only growth for growth and money making for money making. It's like money. It's not even software is eating the world. It's money eating the world. At this point.
Tell me more about
that. It's just what's going on, right? I heard somewhere someone said originally the money was created for facilitating the transfer of products between people or transfer of services between people, and the easier kind of facilitation of that transfer. Whereas now, after so many years of money being around, let's say, what's happening is it's just pretty much money making money, and 90% of transactions are just money for money. It's not even money for products, money for services, money for something. It's just money for making more money. And then a lot of wars and a lot of disregard to third world countries and disregard to a lot of issues in the world is also kind of either to save money or to make more money where possible. So it became that money has just become not this facilitator of things to happen, but rather a substance of its own that everyone is kind of working with and trying to generate more money. It's like, you can't eat money, dude. One friend of mine was or someone told me that because of the times that we're in, and it's very possible that there will be a so-called doomsday pretty soon, or we're going through this period of time where it's crisis is worse with every year. Like in 2020, we thought, oh, pandemic, such bad times, and then hopefully it'll get better in a year. Now it's 2022, and actually it's even worse than it was in 2020, and everything is just going downhill, and everyone notices that. It's like, you don't need to be a voodoo or shaman or astrologist to see that everything is just breaking apart and everything is in terrible condition. So because of all that feeling, it's very possible that within the next few years there will be huge changes in the economic situation of not only the US but the whole world, or not only the whole world but the US as well. In terms of the position of the dollar in the world economy. And then someone was just saying, hey, can you imagine when there will be no electricity, no food, and let's say everyone is starving, how all these super rich people will be burning their dollars in order to stay warm. And I think there was a movie like that with like a plane crash where they were smuggling a few $1 million, and then they were sitting in a cave somewhere on a remote mountain, and they had nothing but these suitcases of dollars that they had to burn in order to keep themselves warm. Kind of that's the feeling that I'm getting about what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah, I definitely understand where you're coming from. Thank you. The way I like to look at it though is, we have however, people attribute time differently here on this earth. But depending on how you look at it, we have about either 6,000 years or 4 billion years of some form. I mean, things continuing. I see where you're coming from, but I think that, or I like to believe, I should say, I like to believe that
Everything will be all right.
that not see, like that's like to say I believe everything will be all right implies that there want to be action done to make sure that that's the case. It's more, I believe that small groups of people who are focused and determined to solve problems can create things and do things that make the future better for the present.
Right. So that's the new mentality of like making things within whatever is already screwed up in a new way that is like a parallel universe almost, where the money is not the cornerstone of the value that people are trying to achieve. Rather, maybe some like globalists sounds like they're and capitalists who created capitalism in the first place. From what I understand, they understood that capitalism has already outlived itself back in 70s and 60s, and then since 70s and 60s and 70s they were already working towards a new scenario of a post-capitalism world where something else would be of a value. And then I mean, some of these things sound like conspiracy theories and whatnot, but a lot of conspiracy theories turned out to be true at the end of.
Yeah, I would say it's just a stream of potentialities.
Right.
Is the
So,
best way to look at it, because it's not like something is completely impossible, but it's about the probability or the potential likelihood that it would occur.
right.
And
So,
that's all backed by people. In my mind, it's all backed by people who would be actively looking to carry these outcomes out. They want to just happen as a matter of course.
right. So here on one side, from what I understand, some part of our world is trying to see what will be that next kind of value bringing feature instead of dollars or like
Right,
money.
right.
And then I've heard, I don't know where or how I found that information. I don't remember that, but something about energy that technocrats, they kind of think that um, everything should be working in an ideal way, in such a way that the least amount of energy is spent in order to achieve the result. So if the book has fallen from a table on the floor and I have to pick it up, it's not that I have to pick it up, it's the fact that I have to fix what has made the book fall in the first place. And in
I
such
like that.
a way of thinking super efficiently, and another interesting point there is that it's actually Karen I think that's where I heard it from. Karen Zondag. She's like a psychologist and maybe has a few other titles. However, she has these YouTube videos where she's talking about the history that she learned on her own about the elitarian structure of our world, about the ideas and the psychological portrait of the people who are in power. And then what's important is that she mentioned that a lot of people who are in power to make decisions don't have empathy. She said that a certain percent of people in the world, let's say 1% or some percent of people in the world, she said, genetically do not have empathy.
Psychopaths. I
Psychopaths,
believe it's
yes.
approximately 1 in 100. I think. I
Yes.
mean, I could be totally wrong. I think that is the accurate math.
I never thought about the word psychopath, but now it makes sense actually. The
Yeah,
connection
approximately
is
1%.
relevant.
Approximately 1% of the population.
Yeah.
Where they
So
actually, what is the term biologically? Cannot. They don't experience those set of emotions.
yeah. So what she also found out in her research is that people who become rich, they still have empathy. Just like naturally, let's say I had empathy and someone had empathy, then he became rich. So he still has empathy. But she said that with the introduction of power into that person's life, and when that person becomes rich and powerful, at that point, she says that empathy fades. So
Yeah, it's
what
interesting.
I want to what that whole thing is I want to kind of circle to is if we got um, a group of people who are building some type of a future, because that's what we've been talking about with you about, that some group of people should be thinking about building some better future within the reality of the existing future. So certain group of people, let's say without any empathy, a lot of money and a lot of power, they're building certain future where they want it to be super efficient to such a way that no energy is spent. Then maybe the value for them instead of the money would be the energy that each person is consuming when he,
That's where my mind went to when you said that as well, which is yeah,
and then or the amount of CO2 that the person is producing, and
right.
then the whole digitalization of the world that we're kind of looking forward right now may be just driven by that fact that, hey, how much energy did you take away, or how much energy did you produce, and what's the benefits that your life actually offers the other people and whatnot. So that's just
Hmm.
one scenario. Now, what other values can be introduced instead of money in such a world? Maybe just empathy for empathetic people, or love,
Empathy credits.
right? Empathy coins, right?
You're
Or
very pathetic today. You're talking
right.
cool.
But I mean, if we're talking about a completely different world, or at least a world where it's not just driven by the desire to accumulate more wealth and destruct more forests, or the world driven by consumerism, that is what's happening right now, is just like, okay, I need more money in order to get more things. And there is like no place for either awareness or calmness or peace or like absence of fear in that regards. So what would be the other direction? So in my opinion, if we uh, combine that with the teachings of the prophets, or the teachings of the sacred texts that have been around for 6,000 years or more or less, then we're definitely talking about like being nice to each other. And that's kind of the main value that people can bring to each other while
Yeah.
living, which also corresponds to somewhat to what you're trying to achieve with trying to give value first in your new business model, or like in your upgraded business model,
Yeah.
where you're saying, okay, we're trying to give value first and then do the hook. But
Yeah. The hook is stationary. You put yourself on the hook.
so it's just like thinking out loud, you know.
Yeah. Um, yeah, a couple things came up to mind there. To start with, first in, first out. You mentioned one thought that came up when you were talking about power was, how do you quantify power? Is that in terms of the number of people you could influence, and to what degree of influence is classified as power? And at what, is there a threshold, and would it be viable, or I don't think it would, or valuable to, yeah, I mean, what do you only allow people to get to a certain threshold of power, and then you delegate the rest, you know what I mean? So it's like, there's some interesting thoughts there. But I guess, how would you quantify power?
How do you quantify power now, or how you quantify power in general? Power is, I think, is something that allows you to influence people. And then there is the power, from my opinion, is where it's so-called totalitarianism, where disregarding people's will make them do what you want. And then there is power where you kind of, maybe it's power that derives from the people that empower you to make decisions for them, which is originally was the idea of all them fancy words like socialism, democracy, etc., which is like power to people, to the people, power. But none of those actually ended up being for the benefit of those people. All of these variants eventually boil down to the fact that the person who became, like, got the power, or the group of people who got into power, they just didn't want to lose it any longer and were considering choices that would benefit them rather than those sheep that they have to herd.
Right. And I listened to a really good audiobook. It was called The Universal Laws of Success and Achievement by Brian Tracy. And I loved it because he said he has this whole thing about the fundamentals of how people really work. And his case was that greed, laziness, and other things like that are actually absolutely natural human capacities and tendencies, and that it's only how they're used that becomes bad. It is it's only the application. Other than that, it is just is. It's just something that is neither positive nor negative until an application becomes one of either. I thought that was really interesting because it's like, yeah, because what he said was, to go more to your point, he said, in general, someone will take the course of actions that is best for them. That's like that is the default human setting. Is I will take, even if someone's being altruistic, they have connected something in their mind that action is better for them to achieve whatever goal that they have. So I really liked that element. But to go even further, to bring it contextually relevant, you mentioned, or to connect it to the book, it's like, let's say you have a congressperson. They're going to take the set of actions that is going to lead to them being reelected. And it's as simple as that. They want to prolong the power that they have, because that power is connected to money, it's connected to control, it's connected to happiness, their lifestyle, and everything like that. So whatever system would be created would have to acknowledge those things. I'm very interested or I'm a firm believer that any and every impulse is or thought or action can either be transmuted to the positive or utilized in a way that is an asset. But it all comes down to what is that person's goal. And actually, I think that one of the biggest problems, I feel this is never talked about, people aren't asked really good questions. Like, in general, let's say you go to your low income home in the US or anywhere. Okay, you could send someone to school, but are they being asked on a regular basis what really matters to them? Are they being asked questions that are going to bring out the greatness or potentialities in them? Because that's what I've found is, as much as, and self-exploration is great, learning and education, everything like that. But when you actually have someone to put it in, present right now, you and I are having these conversations and asking each other thought-provoking questions that are stimulating our minds to operate, think, and exist on a higher level. So I think the number one problem is that average people aren't like, I have a purpose, because probably no one ever asked them, like, what is your purpose? Maybe they heard it, but it wasn't persistent enough to the point where the person was able to refine it. Because I don't know how your process was in getting to where you are, but I had to ask myself, like, what is my purpose? Over and over and over again. It would continuously change and refine as I learned more and pursued that, and then refined it, and then pursued it, and then refined it. It was like, because I had that I created the internal process at some point.
And I think it was similar to me. However, at the beginning, I was just driven by the fact that I need to pay bills. And then at some point, after I already was able to pay bills, I started, it's like the pyramid of Maslow, you know?
Yep.
And then I was like, all right, I can pay my bills, but is it what I was created for?
Yeah.
Is it only why I'm supposed to live here, to make 100 billion zillion dollars and like, and then what? I was like, all right, let's think about it, purpose of my being here. And indeed, it was a constant refining of it. I'm like, all right, well, maybe I was created to build one more company.
Yeah.
I would launch second startup, and then I was like, all right, doesn't feel doesn't feel like it's all I can do. Right, how about a YouTube channel? And how about learning about awareness and seeing how the humanity started to exist on the earth, and then refining and constant refining and questions I asked myself. That's true. And a lot of people, I agree with you, they don't ask themselves these questions. I think a lot of people are at a point where, just like in the movie Matrix, they behave like robots, or like Matrix NPC characters, you know, like non-playing characters from games.
Yeah.
Where they just like run in this hamster wheel without ever having a minute to sit down and even not even a question, like even trying to acknowledge their own past week, or past month, or past year, or relationship that they were in or are in, or like their relationship with their closest people, or like the argument that they had recently, like why was that argument happened, you know?
Yeah.
No, they would just like continue pretty much banging onto the wall, I guess, or running in that hamster wheel without ever getting to acknowledge anything that happened to them. And some of them may have successfully lived their whole life that way.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them stopped for a minute and started thinking. Maybe not.
Maybe they are NPCs.
Maybe they are NPCs. There are a few theories that introduce that concept of NPCs, and as much as I hate to think about other people this way, sometimes I do see people that do seem to me like NPCs, and I find it difficult to talk to them, and I kind of try, but they just avoid in any way conversations about anything outside of their comfort zone.
Absolutely. Do you believe that some sort of, because clearly when you said at first it was like, all right, I have to pay bills. That's what you said what it was for you, and then you went and made a different decision because you had some order. And to go back to the hierarchy, you had maybe in your hierarchy freedom was very important, and so you looked at the various sorts of lives you could live, and you identified that entrepreneurship would not only get you to here, but it would give you that freedom. And on top of that, you could also go here, right? You realize that uncapped nature of opportunity. Mm-hmm. So do you believe that it has to be started? I don't know if it was for you, but do you believe if at best it has to be started young, or do you believe that the average person could, if in the right circumstances, or like in the right circumstances for them? Because I think there's right circumstances for everybody. Some people, it might be some financial pressure, and then this event happens. But I think you have to be looking for it to even say, okay, I want to go on that path. You have to be looking for it in some sense. I want to get to the root of
how.
Exactly.
I think that the ideal path is that a person just somehow naturally starts thinking about it. However, I believe that in majority cases, people are just put against the wall when they start thinking about that. And that can happen on any level. That can happen on a level where the person just loses everything, and then he starts tries to understand, why did I lose everything? Why did I lose, I don't know, whatever it was, relationship, family, money, business, job, health. We talked about that so let's say in the Bible there is like it says that God talks to us through dreams, prophets, and then sickness.
Mm.
So I feel like at certain points people are just put to the wall with what's happening in their life, that they start questioning why. For me, it was, I think, a similar way, maybe on a different level, because I at some point my business. So I already had a business. I already had a second startup. Things were moving fine. Everything was going all right. And then suddenly, bam, and everything just fell apart. Just over a few weeks, things in my life just fell apart. Everything, like everything, relationship, business, money I was making, um, my personal kind of state of mind, health, just everything at some point fell apart. And that was the moment for me of being put against the wall. When I started thinking, all right, damn it, no matter how much I try, I can't. For some reason, I try so much, but at the end, it doesn't even matter. And
Make it
I'm
bark.
still right. And then I'm still trying to get things done, but it doesn't really work out for some reason. I'm like, okay, what's the reason? What's the bottom line there? And that brought me to start praying, actually, because
Mm.
before that, I talked to a few friends of mine who were praying, or like were more spiritual in that regards. And someone of those people who maybe is at a higher level of self-awareness and things around him, and like more esoteric, I guess, he was like, you know what, things do not, he's told me once, he said, you know, things do not work out for me oftentimes, but I noticed, he said, that if I start praying at least for once a day, or like for few minutes a day, he said that things started improve for him, and that things started to look better for him, and he got more, let's say, luck and um, harmony in his life, the term
Mm.
from the previous call we had. And then I was like, all right, maybe I should try that too, because there is not literally everything else I tried, everything else I did, everything else worked out up to a point. And then I was like, right, I'll just try to meditate, spend some more time on my own spirituality, spend more time on understanding where I failed, spend more time on the issues of my personal character, issues within my mentality, my thinking process, within my spirituality, within my connection with my higher self. And I started working on that at that point, once a day, or like 5 minutes a day. Honestly, it took a lot of time. I hoped it will happen faster, but it took a year or 2 years until I started feeling that it actually worked. That actually, indeed, by the virtue of spending more time on my own, on my own inner harmony and on my own awareness, things got more lucky for me in life, and more stable, and more like adventures for myself and for
Mm.
people around me as well. And I felt like these vibrations that were emitted from within of myself, because I got so calm in my life, and because I got
Yeah.
so are more aware and spiritual at the same time, I felt how the world around me started to structure in such a way that it benefited me and people around me more than it did before. in such a way, in just like little things, like, I don't know, being always on time, being always in good mood, having money out of nowhere to show up when I needed it, for example,
Mhm.
or suddenly in my business, I would receive calls from random businesses that would subscribe to our business when I would like just think about, oh, maybe I need another project. And then I wouldn't even advertise, but the project would come. And then such, I don't know, miracles would just start happening more and more often in my life.
Mhm.
And then in such a way, I started realizing that that's kind of the half of the purpose that maybe I was here for,
Mhm.
because by making my own higher self-awareness level higher, everything else around my life also started to become better, and
Right.
relationships improved. Like recently I found out that my sister, like, I mean, we always were in good relationship with my sister, but she was a little bit more depressed at some point in her life, and then that disconnected us from talking to each other, because there was literally like nothing we were able to talk about at a certain point of time, because she would
Mhm.
just always dive back to depressive thoughts that she had. And then what I did is I didn't do much. I was just keep in contact with her, but I also started writing these videos about self-awareness and
Mhm.
leading my YouTube channel about spirituality and things that can improve in life, that not even can, but improved in my own life as my own example. Just things that happened to me, that I started like seeing all these dreams where I saw future, past, ancestors, present, just like crazy scenarios where I get business out of nowhere, and invitations to things that I never thought of before. And I would talk about that on that YouTube channel. My sister started watching it, and then she condemned me of being a sectant at some point. She was like, "Oh, you're in a sect, dude. You're like what are you doing? You gotta be like kidding me. You gotta concentrate more on making money, and you gotta concentrate on like running your business and just work on that. Like, don't spend time on spirituality. That doesn't help anyone." And then that I just like didn't say anything. I just kept doing what I did. And then suddenly, it's like, God bless her, something clicked. And then now she is completely on the same page as I am, and she even outperformed me in reading and like learning information about spirituality, and she became even more interested in like the ancestral line of our heritage that we had, and like she dived into it so much more than I even imagined that she would. I thought that she hates it all, but then something clicked eventually in her, and I guess she gave up her pride, she gave up her ego, and she started kind of diving more into self-awareness as well, and trying to understand the issues within herself, within mentality that she has. She started analyzing her errors of the past. She started analyzing why she got angry at certain points in her life. And then now when she calls me, we actually do have topics to talk about. We
Mhm.
actually discuss all these things now, and it's actually a relief for me, because it's not only a relief, it's also another proof of that the purpose of the person is not only in making money, is not only in making children, is not only in building a house, planting a tree, it's not only in trying to make 2 million out of 1 million, etc. It's not only in being powerful, in just controlling people around yourself. It also in that uh, pa- partially in that process of analyzing inner mistakes, past life mistakes, trying to hear yourself, like, even because we have like 40 to 30 to 50 thoughts per minute, which is like an insane number of 60,000 to 90,000 thoughts per day. We can't even hear what's really important for ourselves. And so that purpose of our lies somewhere within ourselves when we can hear ourselves, and not only all those thoughts that our brain is constantly bombarding us with, which is in reality, in order to hear yourself, you got to start that process of meditating or praying or like yoga or just analyzing your actions in your life or analyzing your relationships with your people. It's just that thing of being able to sit down and spend some time on analyzing, on thinking, on breathing, on meditating, in order for this process to kick off. And then this is probably the process that makes NPCs into real players, where when you are just in a hammer wheel, you are just being a battery pretty much for matrix that we live in. And then at certain point that if you start thinking about what's going on in your own life and analyzing and meditating, you can actually turn towards being a more wholesome person. And it, just by my own experience, it would bring you not only inner peace, but also will bring more luck and understanding and better relationship level and better environment around yourself. Done.
That's an amazing point, and a great place to leave off on right there for the next one.
Sounds good. Well, let's end this call on this positive note then, and invite everyone to see if they are an NPC or a real player.
Beautiful.
All right, let me stop the recording.